If you feel like you're stuck in negative thought momentum, stick with me as I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to hopefully get you back on track. Welcome to the Prime Life Project podcast, a place to help you unlock your full potential, both mentally and physically, to become the best version of you. Welcome back to an episode of the Prime Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Daniel James, and today I want to talk about stopping negative momentum. This is something that a lot of people struggle with. This is something that absolutely crippled me when I was at my worst, and that is when you get stuck inside your own head and the momentum spirals down and down and down, and you're just stuck in that negative thought spiral. So today I want to talk about how do we get ourselves back on track, how do we learn from it, and then how do we move on? Because that's ultimately what we want to do here. We want to actually acknowledge the fact that we have got stuck in this negative thought pattern, because we've all done it, we've all been there. We may just not be aware of it. So the first thing we need to do is actually become aware of it. We then have to get ourselves back on track, because that's the most important thing. Like, yes, we want to learn, yes, we want all this stuff, but if you're stuck in that negative momentum, your life can be almost falling apart around you. That's the extreme version. So the first thing we want to do is get you back on track, first of all. Then what we want to do is then reflect and learn from it, and then we want to move on. Because this is the problem. When we get stuck in this negative thought pattern, it can be quite crippling, it can be quite debilitating. So I want to talk today about how do we actually unpick that, essentially, because it is very, very easy to get stuck in the momentum of the negative thought patterns and energy. Because that's all this is. So thoughts are energy. And if we've got these programs, like pre-designed, what we talk about paradigms as they were, I mentioned this in a few other episodes, it's very, very easy to get stuck in a negative pattern if that's where you're sort of more programmed to go to, which is me. It may be yourself. So if you're stuck there in your own world, your own thoughts, you're there in the silence, and you instantly go to the negative, then maybe you're more programmed into the negative patterns, which again, you can unpick and unprogram. That's another podcast we're going to talk about. But if that's you, which I certainly am, still to this day, I talk to people about this a lot, because fundamentally, what's depression? Depression is when you get stuck in a negative thought pattern and you just get stuck and lost and you get lower and lower and lower and lower. Now, for me, I am predisposed to that. Even now, when my life's amazing, I'm in a very good headspace, if I do not keep track of my thoughts, I will go down that negative spiral. So it's very, very easy to do. It's also very easy to spiral out of control. So one thing I just want to let you guys know and become aware of, and mainly to make you aware of, is you can't get happiness while you're holding on to negativity. I want you to think about that. You cannot get happiness if you are holding on to negativity. So imagine you're holding on to this ball, and that's negativity. You cannot catch happiness while you're holding on to this negative ball. But I also want to take that a step further. Happiness and negativity are the same coin. They're the two sides of the same coin. They're emotions. You've got negativity and you've got happiness. They're on a spectrum. So you can't have both at the same time. You're somewhere on that spectrum. And we don't think about that. So what we're actually doing is we're robbing ourselves of happiness. We're robbing ourselves of happiness because we're stuck holding on to the negative. And this is the problem. We're not aware that we're doing it. You're not aware you're doing it. I wasn't aware I was doing it. But once you actually realize that you are robbing yourself of happiness because you're staying stuck in the negative thought patterns, and then there's no way you can be positive if you're still holding on to negative, that then makes you more aware. And awareness is the key. So, have you thought about the person that you actually want to become today? Have you thought about the person that you want to become today? Because this is something I talk to my clients about quite a lot. You have to have some sort of idea of that person, that version of you that you want to become. Because I've used the analogy before about being a boat in the sea. As a boat in the sea, you are a boat, life is the sea. You need to have some idea of where you're going. Where is your compass pointed? If you don't know, then you're leaving it up to chance. So maybe you want to become this better version of yourself. Maybe you want to become happier. Maybe you want to have more energy, more bubbly, more friends, more connections, more love in your life, more intimacy, whatever it is. How do you know that you are there? How do you know that you're going to get it if you've got no idea where you're moving to? You're just going to be drifting around. You could actually be right now in the best place of your life and you're never going to be aware of it. And this is what happened to someone that came to see me the other day. They came, sat down, and we spoke about this. Like, what do you want out of life? I said, in 5 years' time, what would you like? And she gave me this list of 5 things. And I said, you do realize, given everything you've told me about your life, that your life is exactly this. And she went, you what? I said, everything that you've listed that you want from your life in the next 5 years, you actually currently have it. and she could not believe it. Because she hadn't actually verbalized it, because she hasn't written it down, because she was not actually aware of it. She was wanting this thing, like wishing, dreaming. Because she wasn't asking herself, right, what kind of person, what do I want to have? She wasn't aware. She wasn't bringing it to the forefront of her mind. What are you thinking about? Because what you think about is what you become. And people don't seem to realize this. Thoughts are everything. This microphone was once a thought. The camera was once a thought. Whatever device you're watching, whether it's your laptop or your phone, was once a thought. Thoughts are the most powerful thing that you possess. Thoughts are energy. Thoughts put things in motion. So if you're not thinking about the person you want to become, if you're not thinking about positivity and you're stuck on the negative, is it any wonder why the negativity keeps showing up? This is why people say, oh, negativity comes in threes. Well, why is that? Because one negative thing happens and guess what? You dwell on it. And while you're dwelling on it, putting the negative thought energy out there, guess what? The second thing happens and the third thing happens. There's no law that determines it's got to come in threes. One bad thing can happen and then you can move on. Stop giving your energy and attention. Which is why I say, have you actually thought about the person you want to become today? Have you thought about how you want to feel, what you want to be doing, and how you see yourself? Because if you don't, then you're leaving it up to chance. If you're feeling like you're stuck right now and your boat is stagnant and you're just bobbing along in the sea of life, ask yourself in 5 years' time, what do you want? How do you want to be feeling? How do you want to be dressed? What kind of life do you want to have? What kind of house do you want to have? What income do you want to have? All of these things. I've actually got it written on the back of my phone. It's there. Every single morning I come down and do my journaling. I'm writing about the kind of person I want to be. So it's at the forefront of my mind. Yes, the negative thoughts come in, but I want to preset my mind every single day onto the positives. When was the last time you ever actually stopped and intentionally put some positivity towards yourself and your future and the person you want to become? But you've got to let go of those negative thoughts. You've got to let go of the negative. And when we're talking about these negative thought patterns, if you've been stuck in the same negative thought pattern for 20 years, understand there's going to be some residue that sits there when you pull it out, when you get rid of it. Because energy just doesn't dissipate. It's like when you have a cold. So when you have a cold, we've all had this, where you've had a cold and you've been wiped out for 3 days. Then on the fourth day, you feel a bit better, but you're still not 100%. The reason why you're still not 100% is because the cold is still working out your system. So you might actually have a cold now, but the body's still recovering. Same with the negative thought patterns. The negative thought patterns are exactly the same. Your body and your brain is still going to be recovering from that negative energy that was in there. So just because for one day you focus on the positive rather than the negative, just for one day you're focusing, you're writing out these goals, where you want to be, where you want to become. Just because you've done it on one day, it does not mean that you're not going to have some negativity still sat there. Because you are. It's like a weed. When you pull a weed up from the ground, guess what? It can still survive. Like a plant, a flower. You pull it from the ground, guess what? It can still survive. Why? Because it's still got some energy in there. Yes, you've removed the supply, and again, you remove the energy from that negative thought pattern, you remove the supply, yet it's still going to have some energy there. So it's your responsibility to actually keep focused on the positive and not feed it, but it will still be there for a while. Now, I want to pose another question. I feel like I posed a lot of questions today, but it's important, especially, again, I've got no interaction with you guys, but again, long-term listeners, you'll know that this whole thing is about me trying to basically coach you guys, get you guys to that best version of yourself, whatever that is. This whole podcast is to basically be the person that I wish I had when I was struggling. That's what I want for you. You may not be struggling right now, but if you're listening to this information, you then can't be ignorant to it. And if at any point you do need it, you can come back and grab it. So think of a challenge that you are having right now in your life. Think of a challenge that you are having right now in your life. And then ask yourself, is this more powerful than me? Is this challenge more powerful than me? I'm going to tell you right now, the answer should instantly be no. If the answer isn't instantly no, you don't realize how powerful you are. Because these challenges, these problems that we have, we are the ones that create them. I know that you've done this, because I've done this 1,000,001 times, I'm sure Mikey has as well, where there's a problem or a situation, and it's maybe a little small thing, and then your imagination gets the better of you, and you've created it into something absolutely massive. So this challenge that you've got right now, I'm telling you, it's not as big and bad as what you think. You've probably turned it into something bigger than it is. But understand the power that you actually have. You have more power than you're aware of. Your power of thought, your power of all of this stuff that you've got. Think of all the challenges that you've had in your life. And if you're listening to this, you have overcome every single one of them. And you're going to overcome this challenge you're facing right now. So then it's not more powerful than you. You're telling me right now, this challenge you've got is the most powerful thing you've ever come across. I don't believe it. I guarantee you that you've overcome worse than this. But the brain will convince you that this is the worst thing that's ever happened. It's going to ruin your life. It's going to end you. I've had moments like that in my life where I genuinely thought that this was it. And it wasn't. And I'm still here, just like you're still here. but we don't give ourselves credit for overcoming these challenges, which were seemingly the worst thing we've ever faced. We're still here, and you're still here too. This situation is not greater than you. So in any situation, you have power over two things. In this situation where you're struggling, you get caught into a negative thought pattern, this challenge, whatever it is, you have two choices, or power over two things, not choices. You've got power over two things. Number one, you've got power over how you think. And the second thing is you've got power over how you act. How you think and how you act. And just think about that. You have power over how you act. You have power over how you think. And long-term listeners to the podcast will know how you think determines how you feel. So if you're thinking, you're feeling, you're taking action in a way that you are in control of, that challenge will not beat you. The problem is most of us don't actually know how to think. That is the problem. We don't think. We just sit there and the thoughts are controlling us. We are not controlling our thoughts. And that's what we need to become aware of. Once you start controlling your thoughts, that then puts you back in power. And you have more power than you're aware of. Especially when it comes to taking action, same thing. You can control your actions. You can control how you show up to a situation or an event. And again, a good friend of mine, Paul Cope, he talks about it on a course that I went on. He talks about changing the dance. So right now, if you're stuck in a negative situation with a person, they're expecting you to show up in a certain way. If you can actually think to yourself consciously, how do I need to show up to this situation to actually get the outcome that's going to better serve me? You then show up with a different dance. That then puts you back in control. That then changes the dynamic of that situation. If that person's coming in, again, I'm using another example. Someone I know got kicked out of a nightclub. I'm not going to go into details about who this was. Again, it's a student-age person. It's someone that I know's sister. And they got kicked out of this nightclub for basically using bad language or pretty bad stuff they were accused of, supposedly. And I know this person, I know for a fact, even no matter how drunk they were, this was not them. And basically the whole situation was they were going to go there and go nuts at this, the owner of the clubs here. Owns 3 clubs, he's going to go absolutely nuts. And I thought, right, you're a student, and I'm telling you right now, you are not going in there spending thousands of pounds. Why the hell would he care about you ever going back into his club again? And he's like, oh, he wouldn't. I said, how have you behaved over the last 3 years of you being at university? And she went, yeah, not great. The bouncers don't really like me. I said, okay, so maybe on this particular event, maybe you pushed it too far and the bouncers thought this is our opportunity to actually get rid of this person for good. And she went, yeah, you're right. So I said, you're blaming the bouncers, you're blaming this. But I said, how about you take some responsibility for how you actually acted in these last 3 years and realise that those actions have consequences. And the consequences now that you've been banned from these 3 bars. And she went, you're completely right. So her plan was to go with her mum and go nuts at the owner. And I said, I'm telling you right now, that's the dance. The dance was go there, go nuts. You are not going to get the outcome that you want. You need to think. Now, in this situation, I was thinking for her because I could see the bigger picture. And I was getting her to think differently. This is your fault. You need to take responsibility. She accepted that. Your actions need to be different than what's expected. I said, you're going to write an email. And I said, I'll be a character witness if you need me to. And I'll go up and sort out. So I was putting myself on the line here. So you're going to write an email to this owner and you're going to take full responsibility for your actions. You're going to apologize. And then you're going to ask for a meeting to explain that what was supposedly said wasn't what was actually said. And she said, okay. She sent the email. They emailed her back and said, just because you've sent this email, you can come straight back in again. Changing the dance. They were not expecting that. When you meet fire with fire, you are always going to lose. But when you can actually own your part in this thing, that then gives you power. Because people don't take responsibility. Everyone's the victim. Everyone wants to blame everyone else. And fire causes more fire. Well, actually, if you can go in there. You can control your thoughts there. Again, I was controlling them for her at that moment in time. I was planting the seeds. But once she then took responsibility, she was then back in control. She was then thinking. She was thinking, yeah, actually, this was my fault. It then completely changes the energy towards the situation. You come at it from a completely different angle and you get the result that you want. So you've gone from a massive, huge challenge that potentially is going to ruin your last few months at university to actually a non-event. That's the power of actually taking control of your thoughts and looking at things logically and removing that emotion. Because you don't have to overcome the negativity. You overcome the fear of the negative. Let me say it one more time. You don't have to overcome the negative. You have to overcome the fear of the negative. We're all afraid of this thing. We make it so big, this massive thing. We're so afraid of it. What is the worst that's going to happen? I think I've used this story before. I can't remember if I've used it with Mikey or something else, but I'm going to share it again in case you haven't heard it. When there's a thunderstorm, you have buffaloes in America, and buffaloes run straight into the storm. They run into it head on. They get battered with the storm temporarily, and then within a couple of moments, they're on the other side, they can relax, chill, rest, recover, and get on with their lives. Cows, on the other hand, when they see the storm, they try and outrun the storm. What then happens is they get caught up because they can't outrun the storm. They then get caught up in the storm for longer. It's worse. They've now got no energy, and it's miserable for them. That's what most people do. You need to overcome the fear. You need to go into it head on. Lean into it. Back yourself. But when you get stuck in this negative momentum, which we all do, this was from my mentor, she taught me this. The number one thing that you can do when you're stuck in the momentum of negativity is gratitude. Focus on things in your life that you are grateful for. When you're in that negative spiral and things seem completely helpless and you're stuck spiraling down, stop and ask yourself, what things am I actually grateful for in my life right now? Because I guarantee you, there are things in your life that you're grateful for. Can completely guarantee it. And what you're doing is you're shifting your focus. Because if you have to think, what am I grateful for? Think about that. What are you grateful for? You're now not focused on the negative, this negative event, situation, thing, or person. When you're saying, what am I grateful for? You're then thinking about other things. So as I said to you before, you can't think positive and negative at the same time. So by talking about gratitude, you're now shifting to the positive and letting go of the negative. And that is what we want. If you want to take it a step further, show gratitude for the problem that you're facing, because it will help you grow and it will teach you something. So why not actually show gratitude for the challenge? How bizarre is that? I'm so glad that I'm faced with this challenge, this situation, this person, this problem. Because actually I know that I'm going to overcome this. I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn and grow, whatever that may be. So straight away, it completely loses the energy of the negativity. You're looking for the positive. You're turning a negative situation into a positive before it's become a positive. How bizarre is that? That's why here we talk about gratitude being the most powerful thing that you can do. Gratitude is a precursor to happiness. It is so, so powerful. If you've taken any value from today's episode, don't forget to like and share it with a friend. If you're on YouTube, think about subscribing so you get more videos. We've got this one on the Tuesday and we've got Thursday Thoughts on a Thursday. If you're on Spotify, please give us a review. Go back to the podcast homepage, click on the little stars and then leave us a review there. And if you're on Apple Podcast, think about doing the same. It's been an absolute pleasure. Absolutely love you guys. See you next week.